I don't know. And I know that's not necessarily the answer you may be looking for, but bear with me. We're gonna discuss some of those things. And I say that to you as I don't want to bury the lead in this video by the oh well it could be there, and I end it with I don't know. I'd rather begin it that way and then let's talk from there. So what is the key in making a good independent comic? Not so much a good independent comic, a successful independent comic book. Well, that brings a lot of things to the surface because when you look at the industry right now, well, what makes a successful comic book, period, or I should say, question mark, in the first place? As you look at the industry, the state of the industry, you have comic book stores closing left and right. You have the major companies losing what may have been considered their superstar talent to their favorite writers, be it Jeff Johns, Scott Snyder, both of which have opened up their own publications and have since published with other companies, selling their properties to people like Amazon, Comixology, the Ghost Machine comic books that are currently being published in this. And I would not classify those as independent. You have backing to them. So when I talk about independent, I mean the real independents, guys who have not been in the industry for 10 to 20 years, guys who, as a matter of fact, are only now coming into the industry. And I think it's a very important distinction because one of the points of discussion that people like to bring up in terms of independent and comic book success, comic book this, that, is they like to conflate things. They really like to conflate. I mean, conflation is their favorite thing to do. They say, well, manga is succeeding and manga are comics. Therefore, comic no. Why would you that's a dumb argument. I mean, just to put it simply, I'm not saying that to be insulting. You know that's a dumb argument. We know that's a dumb argument. Why are we arguing about that? We're not. You just want to prove your point so bad. You'll prove your point so bad that you'll be wrong about it just to be right, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I digress. So let's make a clear distinction. When I say independent comic book, I'm not referring to Scott Snyder going over there and selling his properties to Amazon. Oh, by the way, those aren't necessarily successful in the first place. We can get to that later. I'm talking about for somebody like me, for somebody like you, for instance. I don't believe that Scott Snyder is currently watching this video, so I can say confidently for somebody like you, well, what can you do? What can I do to make a successful book? Is it good artwork? Do I need good artwork? Do I need masterful storytelling? Do I need the best publication? Do I need good deadlines? Do I need good deadlines? What do I need to publish a successful book? And by successful, I mean something that I can make money from, that's worth more, if not equal to the work that I put into it. The money, the time, the effort that I spent doing it. Will I get it back? Is it a sound investment? The short answer, just to start off, is no. Comic books are probably the worst thing that you, as an individual, could get yourself into in the year 2024, simply because the biggest comic book companies on the planet that own multi-billion-dollar movie studios couldn't sell a book to save their life. And by couldn't sell a book to save their life, I mean DC laid off more than 2/3 of its staff 3 years ago. And that's very important. Because if comic books were thriving and everybody's having all this success, then why did one of the most major comic book publishing companies lay off 2/3 of its staff if it was doing so well? And I'm bringing up old news, which is something that I don't tend to do, although I do it all the time, because that's very telling. That despite all the rhetoric, despite the debates and the conjecture and everything that people want to tell you, it's very important because Jim Lee himself, the person that we can trust to give us at least semi-accurate information about what's going on in these companies, particularly at DC, well, he said only half the line wasn't losing money. He said half the line was losing money. I don't want to misquote him. He said something very concerning that as a multi-million-dollar company, you don't want to hear necessarily whenever you're publishing all these books, when the books don't make a whole lot of money on their own. And I'm digressing into something else because I get distracted very easily. But that applies to now. There's a bird outside of my window that, if you notice me looking, it's a very nice bird. And I bring all this information to you because, once again, we're going into the classification of what makes a successful comic book. What defines a successful comic book if in the industry itself, it is very indefinitive. what a successful comic book is, what it could be, what it makes. We don't know the sales figure. So how can you even register within the industry itself what a successful book is if they don't have the measurements? So the good thing about true independent comic books, that is the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaigns, the Kickstarter campaigns, the Eric July, Young Ripa's campaigns themselves, is if we take them at their word, we have the numbers. Actually, we have the money, we have the sales figures on the books, and we know what each of them sold because these sites are gracious enough to give us that information. So we can actually measure better than the industry itself the success of these crowdfunded books. So let's take a look at that. As far as people who are just bursting onto the scene, the only two real examples of that have major success in that field are two people, your boy Zach and Eric July. Now, however you feel about these individuals can be put to the side for one moment if you simply take a look at their numbers. Your boy Zach has made, I believe, up to $500,000, if I'm not mistaken. He may have made up to $800,000 on a single comic book release. That is his Jawbreaker series. His most recent success, I do believe, made him $500,000 in terms of the crowdfunding numbers. The amount that people gave him, the amount that crowdfunding made was $500,000. Young Ripa, Eric July, in his Ripaverse, has not made below $1 million on any one of his 4 releases. That's very important. Because of all the debate and all the talk surrounding these people's books, we can get a look as to what could make a successful comic book as an independent. So let's take a look at it. You have somebody like your boy Zach, who puts out a book every maybe 3 months, puts out a new campaign. His most successful campaigns being the most digestible ones, Expendables, any book that he does with Sylvester Stallone. Did I say the Expendables? I meant Jawbreakers. I apologize. I'm new to this thing. Jawbreakers, anything with Sylvester Stallone, although he did publish the Expendables. And just his very palatable title. I do believe Rock and Roll Ninja was a good success, so much so that he relaunched the campaign. You look at that, okay, let's take a look. Okay, the art, I got the Expendables Go to Hell. Wasn't bad, wasn't good. It was palatable art. I could digest this art. It was not the best artwork I've ever seen. It wasn't the worst. It was art that told the story. And I think there is something to that. There is a skill to have artwork that can tell you the story without having a whole lot to comment on it. The story was a story. It was a little tropey. It was a little... I'm not totally sure where I'm at right now. But all in all, the ideas were good. It was a good read. You look at some of his other books. You look at Rock and Roll Ninja. That's being critically acclaimed by his fans, by even people outside of him. People that may not even like him are saying, hey, this book wasn't bad. The artwork was good. Everything was solid about it. But I have this criticism. And that's fine. No book is without criticism. What's the biggest critique, though, that you can take? And I'm going to extrapolate from your boy Zach these things. What's the biggest critique you can take from a publisher like your boy Zach? Well, I'll tell you. The biggest critique is the books show up 2 or 3 years late. I couldn't tell you the real numbers, but I do know that the Expendables took 3 years to get to my door. From the time that I bought it to the time it got to my door. That's a long time. And while I buy the very basic, I buy the book itself. I don't have extra money to spend, so I buy the book itself. There are other people who spend up to $200, if not more, dollars on these campaigns. And if I were to give somebody $200, the least they could do is give it to me on time. Whether that is 8 months from now or 2 years from now. What I wouldn't want to do if I was giving somebody $200 is, oh, that'll get to you eventually. Eventually? Wait, whoa. What do you mean eventually? Like, that's $200 isn't cheap. I would like to know when I'm going to get this. Whereas with Ripa, and anybody similar to him, which there's nobody similar to him just yet, he is the most successful independent in the scene right now as it stands, with his 4 books that are $1 million hits. I do believe ISOM #1 made up to $2 million, if I'm not mistaken. There's something to be had there. What separates Ripa from your boy Zach? Is it the story? Is it the artwork? It's certainly not either of those two, because from the grapevine you can hear, well, the artwork is a bit subpar. The story was not bad. You hear a lot of criticisms about him. It is a debacle in itself, but if you sift through the junk of it all, there is some honest critiques to be had with these stories. So he's not selling you based off these grandiose, epic stories. He's not selling you off of this Jim Lee-esque art. As a matter of fact, the art, I've taken a look at it myself, I don't find it particularly intriguing. And that's not a put down, that's my honest opinion on the art. But he does have one thing that separates him from the rest. He has a larger following, first of all. He does a lot more advertising. And he meets his deadlines. And you think, well, you think, well, I'm buying this comic book. I want good art. I want good storytelling. Well, that's what you say. But according to the practice, the practical application of this process, apparently people value professionalism and getting your money's worth on time above those two other things, if you could believe that. So what makes a good independent book? Well, I still don't know.